Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the brilliant mind of the late educational thinker, Professor Dr. AbdulHamid AbuSulayman. We're going to decode his masterpiece, The Builder's Island, and transition it from what seems like a simple narrative into a practical, highly actionable master plan for institutional and civilizational revival. Let's get right into it. Picture this. A society faces total, crushing defeat and is forced to retreat into dark caves. So, how does a fractured community rebuild from the ground up? Do they just surrender to the crisis, or do they plan their return? This is the core dilemma presented in our source material today. It tackles exactly how an entire community can shift from a paralyzed, negative response right into sustainable civilizational building. The text actually dedicates this profound work to Dr. AbuSulayman, viewing it as a unified vision for what the author describes as a fragmented ummah, or nation. The source highlights what it views as a deep tragedy, a nation that remains divided and dependent, uniting over something like a World Cup football match, while remaining entirely fractured over vital core causes like Palestine and its own sacred sites. So within this context, the story of peaceful animals facing aggressive beasts acts as a roadmap out of corruption, despotism, and division. It shows us exactly how a scattered nation can reorganize its ranks.
Here is our blueprint for institutional revival today. 1. Decoding the blueprint. 2. The three-legged vessel. 3. Shura and collective action. 4. Crisis management and intellectual security. 5. Pillars of civilizational renaissance. And 6. The implementation guide.
Section 1. Decoding the blueprint, the philosophy of symbolism. Let's uncover the true intent behind the island's animal inhabitants. What's really fascinating here is that we aren't just reading a simple children's story. This is a deeply layered pedagogical and civilizational model. The author uses a philosophy of symbolism, where literally every animal represents a specific, crucial function within a healthy society. It's basically a strategic manual in disguise. For instance, take the owl. It doesn't just hoot in the night. The owl represents strategic thinking, critical vigilance, and early warning. Meanwhile, the massive elephant symbolizes a just, productive authority, leading the charge and presiding over councils with absolute wisdom and strength. Section 2. The three-legged vessel, foundations of revival. Let's see how civilizational revival requires a stable foundation. According to the text, true stability relies on a three-part foundation, described as a cooking vessel with 3 legs. First, you have the goat and sheep, which represent the family, providing essential psychological warmth and nurturing. Second, the patient camel represents the school, bearing the heavy day-to-day load of education and conceptual building. And third, the soaring birds, like the hoopoe and the nightingale, represent a purposeful media tasked with enlightenment and national resolve. If you take away even one of those legs, well, the whole vessel tips over. Section 3. Shura and collective action, the end of autocracy. So, how do these institutions operate together without falling into the trap of dictatorship? The peaceful animals in this narrative show us exactly why autocratic, top-down management almost always fails. Instead of dictation, they rely on daily dawn meetings driven by Shura or consultation. It's all about discarding the ego and merging very diverse capabilities into a single, unified team. When we break down how these roles are distributed in these meetings, it's based entirely on innate abilities. You combine the elephant's raw strength with the horse's hooves for heavy foundational labor, add the bee's sting for specialized defense, and top it off with the owl's vigilance. Every single unique trait is utilized for a collective defense and construction strategy. No one gets marginalized. Section 4. Crisis management and intellectual security, safeguarding our minds. But teamwork alone isn't enough when external threats, like the aggressive beasts in the story, drive you out of your valley and into the caves. Now, instead of just surrendering in those dark caves in a state of helplessness, the animals use them as strategic review chambers. This maps perfectly to modern institutional crisis recovery. First, experiencing the shock and retreating. Second, conducting an internal SWOT analysis to find out exactly where their weaknesses lie. Third, formulating a counter strategy. And fourth, actively going back out to reclaim and rebuild their valley. A massive part of that counter strategy is fighting a battle of the mind. The oppressors tried to spread a rumor that the owl's hoot was a bad omen, hoping to strip the peaceful animals of their nighttime security guard. But the animals achieved true intellectual security. They rejected the enemy's superstition using critical thinking, and instead they deployed parrots to echo frightening sounds, basically launching their own psychological counteroffensive to scare the beasts right back. Section 5. Pillars of Civilizational Renaissance. Organizing the Blueprint. Let's synthesize the remaining pillars that transform this survival strategy into a long-lasting civilizational renaissance. It's amazing to see how elegantly these pillars interlock. We have absolute judicial equality, where the massive elephant and the tiny sparrow are held entirely equal before the law. We see environmental balance. Victory isn't just about military defense. It involves replanting the earth and utilizing bees for pollination. We see the squirrel teaching us future planning and long-term economic sustainability. And most importantly, we see the use of soft resources. They prove, without a doubt, that you can build immense power and self-reliance without ever needing to mimic the aggressive fangs and claws of the oppressors. To really cement this idea of self-reliance, the source text invokes a profound quote from the late Sheikh al-Sharawi: "Bread from the hoe must precede words from the head." This actually became an active motto raised across the Builders Island. It's a powerful reminder that real independence and the ability to speak freely starts with agricultural self-reliance and the ability to produce our own basic needs.
Section 6. The Implementation Guide, a Call to Action. Now, for the most important part of this explainer, how do we actually apply these lessons in our real-world institutions today?
Dr. Salah Abdul-Sami Abdul-Razak, who prepared this methodological guide, explicitly calls on educators and researchers to take these concepts off the page. He suggests creating workshops to deconstruct these narrative symbols for institutional strategy. We need to build training modules based around that three-legged vessel of the family, school, and media. And we need to launch applied student projects rooted in Shura, teamwork, and environmental stewardship. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a crucial challenge. The Builders Island is a lot more than just a story. It's a blueprint waiting to be put to work. So, look at your own organization, look at your own community, and ask yourself, which of these pillars will you build first? Take these lessons, gather your team, and start building. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.